thank you for coming here on such a lovely day. And I'll bet there's lots of other things that you'd rather do, but there's democracy for you. Thank you for being here. Welcome to this candidate forum sponsored by the Clallam County League of Women Voters. And thanks to the city for allowing us to use their beautiful chamber today. My name is Ed Chad. I'm a member of the League, and I will be your moderator today. Our timers are Tom and Helga Montgomery, sitting right over here. And they're going to make sure we stay within our time limits. The League of Women Voters is a 95-year-old national nonpartisan organization whose purpose is to promote the informed and active participation of citizens in government. Our goal for today's forum and all the events we're sponsoring leading up to the November 3rd election is to provide you with the information you need to cast an informed vote. We will be following the agenda you were given when you came in. If you don't have one, we have some wonderful League members who would be happy to give you one, so just raise your hand. Our forum today will be in two parts. The first panel will feature candidates for Port Commissioner, and the second will be for the 6 candidates for 3 positions on the Port Angeles School Board. Each panel will follow the same basic outline. The candidates will make brief opening statements, then we'll take questions from the audience, and then the candidates will make their closing statements. It often happens that there are more audience questions than we have time for. That may not happen today. But we've asked all the candidates and speakers to remain through the whole afternoon to be available to you for one-on-one questions and answers during the break and at the conclusion of this forum. So before we begin, a few housekeeping matters. First, please turn off all cell phones and any other devices that make noise. Please note that there are restrooms in the lobby, out the door and out to the right. And in case we need to evacuate the building, hopefully the discussion won't get that heated, you should exit the way you came in. To make the most of our time, I'll ask you to kindly refrain from applauding, booing, hissing, cheering, or in any way interrupting our speakers. I'll be sure to give you a chance at the end of each session to give a round of applause to all the candidates. Only audience members at the microphone will be permitted to speak, and any sort of disruption or demonstration, including waving signs or banners, is not permitted today. Somehow I don't think we're going to worry about that today. League members wearing name tags are located around the room. Please signal to them if you need assistance. And finally, a word about video recording. No non-league audio or video recording devices of any kind are permitted during this forum unless prior permission has been received. However, the League is making its best effort to record this forum. We plan to post this video and others from our fall forums on the League's website at www.lwvcla.org. Candidates, their campaigns, and others are strictly prohibited from using any part of League recordings for campaign purposes. So, let's now turn to our first session, the 2 candidates for Commissioner for the Port of Port Angeles. The stated mission of the Port of Port Angeles is to bring people, resources, and industry together to foster living wage jobs. The Port operates airports and marinas in Clallam County, and it owns and leases commercial property. Its boundaries are the same as those of Clallam County, and the 3 Port Commissioners are elected to 4-year terms. Port Commissioners earn $250 a month, plus a per diem of $114 per port business day, up to a maximum of 96 days per year. The 2 candidates appearing before you today were the top 2 vote getters in the August primary. They appeared on the ballots of voters who live in District 3, which runs from the county's western boundary, the ocean, to Valley Creek. District 2 stretches from Valley Creek to Boyce Road, east of Port Angeles, and District 1 covers the rest of the eastern part of the county. All voters in all 3 districts will now elect the successful candidate in the upcoming general election. Each candidate in the order they filed for office will be given up to 2 minutes for opening remarks. Following their opening remarks, you, the audience, are invited to be part of this forum by asking questions. I'll explain those procedures when we reach that point. However, please be thinking of your questions during the course of the presentations. We'll close up this first portion of the forum by asking each candidate to make closing remarks of up to 1 minute, and this will happen in the reverse order from their opening remarks. And actually, before I get started on that, in case you want to start working on any questions for either of these forums and you don't have a pencil and paper or whatever, we do in the back have, hopefully they'll come, league members that have pencils and cards that you can write your notes on. Okay, we have asked both candidates to answer the following questions in their opening remarks. First, what are your qualifications for serving as a Port Commissioner? Second, what are your primary goals for your first year in office? And how do you intend to address the key issues confronting the Port? So we will begin with Connie Beauvais. Ms. Beauvais has lived in Joyce for 20 years. She has owned and run 3 businesses and also worked in the public sector. She is currently manager of the Crescent Water Association. She has served on the Clallam County Planning Commission and the Charter Review Commission, and she's a member of the Port Angeles Business Association. Ms. Beauvais.
Well, thank you once again to the League for making this forum available, and to everyone who came out on this beautiful day to learn about the candidates. You have heard my qualifications and my background, and you can learn more about me at connieforport.com. I intend to use my skills and experience carefully and thoughtfully as the Port faces these issues: creating job opportunities, harbor cleanup, community engagement, and working within a balanced budget. I see the Port's mission as twofold. That is, to wisely manage the public land under its purview and to provide job opportunities. So I will work to create job opportunities by supporting and building up the Composite Recycling Technology Center and demanding that DNR and the U.S. Forest Service establish a reliable and sustainable timber supply. I'll work for environmental stewardship by completing the environmental renovation of the Cape Ply site and completing stormwater improvements on the waterfront and uplands that are owned by the Port. Marketing our assets, not just the Port's assets, but the county assets, by marketing for marine trades, barging business, more shipbuilding, and more topside repairs, and solving the Lincoln Park tree issue and securing a reliable airline service at Fairchild International. The areas that I see needing the most immediate attention are leadership, communication, and marketing. We need a more proactive commission in making decisions. There needs to be more interaction between the Port Commissioners and staff, the commissioners and the stakeholders, and the commissioners and the public. And we need to increase marketing in order to advance the Port's major lines of business, from signage at marinas to aggressive recruitment of appropriate businesses. And so I sit here before you today and ask for your vote so that we can move this agenda forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Breidenbach has lived in Forks for 36 years. He was a senior manager at Rainier and also worked as a fishing guide on the peninsula and in Alaska. He has served on the Forks City Council for the last 7 years. Mr. Breidenbach.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and it's a beautiful fall day. The colors are out around the lake today. It was gorgeous driving out here. I moved to Forks in '76. I've worked here ever since. This has been a great experience for me and a great home. This is a beautiful place. I believe my business background is extremely strong in that I was a senior manager for Rainier for several years after I retired, or before I retired. And I managed sales on 400,000 acres. I also managed harvesting, hiring contractors on that 400,000 acres. My other job at that company was also to purchase timber sales and market all those products from the ownership as well as the timber sales. I've worked at almost every port in the state of Washington as either a customer or delivering materials to the ports for their customers. I've been a customer at the Port of Port Angeles, loading ships, moving wood in or sound to domestic mills. I believe that my history is very strong here, and my experience is unparalleled with the last several commissioners that we've seen on the board, and including the current candidate that we're running against here. So I really want to thank you for, again, coming and listening to us today. I think the port is in a mode where we'll see increased activity with the new area that's being cleared off, and also with the graving yard area, that I think that's going to slowly come together, and we're going to see more activity there that's going to help everybody here in the county quite a bit. I would like to see an economic development zone developed in Forks to help the Forks area out. It's had two big hits here lately with the two mills going down and the DNR harvesting going down also. So again, thank you.
Thank you both. We will now take as many questions as possible from the audience, given our time frame. You can start lining up over by Eileen. Eileen Herling, lead member, at the microphone. Eileen will hold the mic for you, and if you can't come to the mic, you can write your question on an index card with your name on it, and try to find somebody else in the audience who will get up and ask it for you. And if not, and your other option is, if you can't find anybody else in the audience to read it for you, Eileen will read it for you. So if you have anything you want to send up to Eileen, if you just hold the card up with your name on it, one of the lead members will pick it up and bring it over to Eileen. But I'm glad to see we have a few questioners lined up. That's great. So please, again, state your name at the beginning of your question. You may direct your question to one or both candidates. However, both candidates in either case will have an opportunity to respond to all questions. You will have up to 30 seconds to ask your question. The candidates will be given up to 1 minute to answer each question, and then after each having an answer, we'll have another 30 seconds for a rebuttal if they wish to make one. Again, we're going to be strict about time limits in order to allow us as much time as possible for your questions. Well, maybe if you have 2 questions, you can get back around the back of the line and ask your second one. I expect there will be approximately 30 minutes for questions and responses. Hopefully we'll get everybody's question in here today. But while the rest of you are thinking of what questions you want to ask, I get to ask the first question. And that is about the Economic Development Corporation of Clallam County. Clallam County's Economic Development Corporation recently reorganized amidst controversy about its effectiveness at its mission. It continues to receive public funding as the county's designated, quote, associated development organization, unquote. Do you recommend that the port continue to support the EDC and its public funding, or would you prefer another model for fostering local economic development? And we'll start with Mr. Breidenbach.
The EDC originally was a state-funded group, and it actually, at the beginning of its inception, had a couple of successes down here in Port Angeles. But since then, which has been quite a long time, I think it's, I'm not sure, I have to look again, 7 years at a minimum. I haven't seen anything positive come out of there. I know they've reorganized and they've seen trying to create a little more cohesiveness with the county governments. But I think as a Fork City Councilman still sitting, I would not vote for them to fund them again. I would rather see that money flow into another organization such as a port that has the facilities to talk to all the county governments and to create a little more economic clarity for people that come into the area or people that are here working now. And I think that's my general idea of EDC. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bobet?
Economic Development Councils, where the whole concept was set up originally by an RCW in order to provide some economic development kind of relief to rural depressed communities such as Clallam County. And there's a number of different ways that the organization can be set up, but the way it is set up now, and it has just been approved, I have the newest quarterly report from the EDC, and because they have made such great strides this past year, they have been approved by the Department of Commerce to be the ADO for the next 2 years at least. EDC, I see our county as a great big wheel, you know, like it's on a covered wagon. So we have a big wheel, that's a boundary of the county. We have a hub in the middle. That needs to be an organization who can work with all of the spokes, little businesses, big businesses, all the county governments, to provide economic expansion and development for us. And right now it is the EDC, and it needs to continue to be the EDC. I've run out of time.
Okay, thank you. So you'll now both have 30 seconds for a rebuttal. Mr. Breidenbach?
One of the telling issues with the EDC is now it's a nonprofit organization, and I believe, to the best of my knowledge, I've got a couple of looks here. To the best of my knowledge, most of their dependency on their funding is from the local governments, and I believe I haven't seen them more than once in 7 years out at a council meeting, even after we've appropriated funds for them. So I'm very disappointed in the organization as a whole. I believe the idea is correct, but I think we can do that locally. Thank you.
Ms. Bobet?
It is the port's job, one of its main missions is to create job opportunities. But that's only on port property. The port should not overstep its bounds and just go running around willy-nilly trying to establish a lot of small businesses and all. They have their boundary, and they are looking at creating family wage jobs and in a certain space. It is the EDC who can best help people who have a really good idea but don't have any idea about how to create a business plan, where to lease property, or how to get funding for their business and how to get it started. The EDC, one of the people that they work with is the Small Business Administration. That's the place we need to have that work done.
I have did she have more than 30 seconds on that? Okay, just to be fair, Mr. Breidenbach, would you like another 15 seconds?
Sure, why not? I've got the time. I think the EDC and the port could work together, but the port has a lot more expertise to be able to field that information out to the different cities. I know in Forks we get more business inquiries than we get from the EDC.
Okay, great. We will now go to our first patient question asker in line.
My name is Gayla Heisel, and I'm from Sequim. And my question is for Ms. Bobet. In your opening remarks, you suggested that, or stated that you wanted to solve the tree problem at the airport. Besides cutting down those trees or topping them out, what else can you do to bring airline service back to the peninsula?
That's a two-pronged question. One is trees and one is airline service. The trees need to be taken out of the 3-degree glide slope path. They need to come out, and I will do everything I can to get those trees out of the way. So why do the trees need to be removed? Because if you have trees that are penetrating the 200-foot level in the airspace, you have to have a minimum 85 feet clearance for planes to come in. And if our cloud coverage is at 200 feet, or even 300 feet, even if it's at 300 feet, you've got 15 feet of flying room in there. Those trees need to come out in order to get large planes in and for us to be even more ready for emergencies. And I'll have to finish my airline part in my 30 seconds.
Mr. Breidenbach.
The airport issue, it sits in the city's lap right now. I don't believe the port should be responsible for buying any property, acquiring any property in that park. If the tree removal was to limit it to the few trees that are at the incorrect height limit, that would be fine. I would also like to see if there was to be a larger scale harvest of timber there. I'd like to see the schools get involved in prepping site and replanting and becoming involved. Even if we planted another crop of conifer and it had to be harvested in 40 or 50 years, I think that would be a great idea for the people here and the kids, both in Sequim and in Forks, to see how that all comes together and what's around them and how it all fits.
Okay, 30-second rebuttal.
Well, I see that we have several options to deal with the trees. One is for the city to give the port an easement, or the port can purchase the property and then deal with it. Personally, I would like to see kind of a contest with different landscape architects in the community and get the community involvement on, building a new park, a park that you can see through the canopy and has much lower coverage and is useful for everyone. We are very, very close to getting an airline in here. I was on the phone this morning and we are very close.
Okay, Mr. Breidenbach.
The second part of your question was bringing an airline in, and as Connie was saying, it's very close. There was last year, I believe, a new FAA ruling that required additional training for pilots, and now the larger airlines are stealing the pilots from the smaller airlines, and the company that the port has been talking to is having problems finding pilots because of this. There is a shortage, a pilot shortage. So that's one of the issues besides all the rest of the craziness there.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Yes, Jim Preston, I live in Port Angeles, and my question deals with jobs in the port. I think everybody agrees that the port is a fabulous economic jewel for the county when it comes to jobs, and I'm glad to hear that there's diversification away from timber, the composite facility that's being built. I have kind of a dual question here. Number one, how many family wage jobs are expected to be created by the composite reclaiming facility? And secondly, were either of you at the public hearings for the economic development funds, which now unfortunately have been held up unduly? Thank you. I'm here for both of you.
Okay, so we'll start on that one with Mr. Breidenbach.
I can't say for certain what the exact number of family wage jobs would be at the composite area. I've read and looked at some detail, and it shows anywhere from 100 to 200 jobs, possibly, over the long term, but I don't know that those are prevailing wage jobs or that they will be. The business that is going to run the composite site is going to be separate from the port. The port is simply going to lease the property to the company. The EDC, was it the EDC?
Right.
I believe that's a good function. I'd like to see that continue. It's always good at the city council. We also do something similar with the local businesses that are nonprofit that are doing community good. So I always like to see that.
Ms. Beauvais.
Jobs. That's what the Composite Recycling Technology Center should be able to generate well. And there are companies who are waiting for us to get the building going and get it underway so they can come in and have some prototype products made that we can then have stress test over at University of Washington over on the east side and get some businesses going. The plan is, from the business plan, they're looking at having an average wage of right in the area of $80,000 in year 5 for 111 jobs, and by year 9 they're looking at a total of 199 jobs, and those are direct jobs. Those are not the indirect or induced jobs. If you add those in, then it's a total of 337. As far as the public hearings for the opportunity funds go, I was at both public hearings. They were legally noticed in the newspaper. That was with the Opportunity Fund Board, and that is the proper place for those hearings to take place.
Okay, thank you. 30-second rebuttal, Mr. Breitenbach?
No rebuttal.
Okay. We'll go on to the next question then.
Good afternoon, Kenneth Riando, Port Angeles. I'd like to ask you both about the redevelopment cleanup of the Penn-Ply, Cape Ply property. I've advocated to the port previously that this is close to the city, and with the enhancement of the waterfront in the near proximity, and Valley Creek now being partially uncovered, what do you think about the transition in that property? Will it be another large warehouse, or will it be something less imposing? And will you think about Valley Creek perhaps uncovering some more? Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Bouvet.
The estuary down there was set, it was agreed to by the city and the port to be the buffer between the downtown kind of tourist area and the industrial park. And it is my belief that that is where the line needs to stay. I do want to see a marine trades business on that property. That is very important for us. There are already bushes and things that are out there that will help to make it a little more aesthetic. But we need those family wage jobs in there, and we need marine trades that close to the water. When I was doorbelling the other day, I met a couple from Juneau. They just moved down here in March from Juneau, and they asked me about the working port. Are you going to keep it a working port, or are you going to do like Juneau did and just bring cruise ships in? She said that has totally destroyed Juneau, that if that wasn't already the capital, they wouldn't have anything there. They have empty storefronts when it is not the tourist season, and it just does not bring in good money to their community anymore.
Mr. Breitenbach.
I think the area down there to statuary, when you look, it would be east. I think that could be fixed up a little bit as it has been. I believe that the port should remain committed to commercial activity down there at the Penn-Ply, Cape Ply. I could always call it Penn-Ply, kind of old Rainier thing. So I'd like to see that, but also I'd like to see down there the possibility of looking at a small trade school in conjunction with Peninsula College for a trade school for the marine trades. I think that's sorely needed here, and I think there's a lot of other areas that would send people here for that, and I think it would be a big bonus for the area. But I believe that should stay commercial. Thank you.
Rebuttal, Ms. Bouvet.
Well, I do not think that any of the land down there close to the water should be used for a marine trade school. We need marine trade businesses down there. I think one of the things that could help, to answer you is to make that area down there more aesthetic, more pleasing to hikers and bikers. We need to get hikers and bikers through that area, and there needs to be good pathways through there. The port can certainly do something for signage to let people know what they're looking at and where they can go.
And Mr. Breitenbach.
I guess the port has the repair facility there. I also like the fact that we do get cruise ships in here, and it's a big uplift for the local community. The first time I ever saw it, everybody was wearing around the same clothes, same little bags, and they were going to all the stores, and I'm sure that was just great for everybody. I tried to get a haircut that day, and there was like 6 people trying to get a haircut from that ship. So I think the cruise ship business, the tourist business, is a very important part of our community here.
Okay, thank you. And next question.
Yes, my name is Norma Turner, and mine is about the $1 million that the county just gave to the port. And I'd like you both to express your opinion on what you think about the fact that the port received that money but didn't have to sign a contract, so that the taxpayers do not know what they're paying for. So what is your view on when you receive large funding from other taxing bodies, whether or not there should be a written contract? And then I have a second question, maybe I'll come back and ask it.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Breitenbach.
I believe there was a memorandum of understanding, and I didn't follow the contractual part of that too well, just the constant conflict within the county. That was what disturbed me the most, was there wasn't a good communication and there wasn't a good throughput to make that a lot simpler and a lot clearer for everybody.
Clarify my question. I asked the commissioners if there'd be a contract, and they said no.
Okay, Ms. Bovee?
There is a process to follow to receive opportunity funds. It is an application process, and all of the application process, it was all properly filled out. It went through the executive director of the EDC and went through the Opportunity Fund Board. It was heard at public hearing. They took a vote on it. They voted that it was a good thing. And that application then went to the county commissioners for approval. It did follow everything properly. Those applications do not require a contract in order to approve the funding, and I agree with that.
Rebuttal. Mr. Breidenbach?
I've gone through a similar process a couple times for much smaller amounts in Forks, and the process is very clear-cut. It's a step-by-step process that if one part doesn't work, then it doesn't happen. So this process followed the correct steps, and I agree with that also. I think it's the correct thing.
And Ms. Bovee, rebuttal?
I'm done.
Okay. All right, next question.
Cindy Kelly from Port Angeles. And I hear about jobs, but our biggest export we're doing is our children. So how do we give our kids career tech skills to keep them in our county for the kids who choose not to go to college, so four-year college? So what would be your answer of how we work with our K-12 system?
All right, Ms. Bovee.
It saddens me greatly that our greatest export is our children. And sometimes that happens just naturally. Kids want to get out and experience the rest of the world before they come back. But we need to have those opportunities here for them. And I really hope that the composite recycling business is going to be one of those things that will keep kids here. That hopefully that's going to provide good family wage jobs and will keep those kids here. And just by, raising that business right there, it kind of flows outward too and creates other opportunities also. So we need to work closely with our schools to make sure, even in the marine trades and the carpentry business and that we have all of those opportunities available to our kids, and we have those business opportunities here for them.
And Mr. Breidenbach?
I raised 2 boys, no girls, thank goodness. 2 boys. One is in the Navy still. He made a career out of that. He's in Norfolk, Virginia. The other lives and works in Port Angeles. He's a heavy equipment operator. One of the things that we're missing in education is, I believe, a trade school craft. Sweden, for instance, has a graduation rate of something like 95, 96%. And at a certain point in time, all those kids decide whether they're going to college or whether they're going to work a trade, whatever that is. And they spend the last 3 or 4 years learning that trade and come out trained. And we're missing that. And that's why I believe, we need a marine trade school here to help at least try to keep our kids involved and interested in the area more so, rather than having a computer IT degree and working out of Seattle or working for Boeing. It'd be nice to keep them home.
30-second rebuttal, Ms. Bovee.
I really hope that this question is asked of the school board candidates too, because that's where it needs to happen. The Peninsula College has been really good about answering to the public need for different classes. When there's flaggers that are needed for DOT and different contracts, and I've been through flagging school myself. The Peninsula College does not have to offer those classes, but they do. They offer all they can to help support our community, but I would like to see it get down to a lower level so that the kids know what's available when they get out of school.
Okay, 30 seconds, Mr. Breidenbach.
My career at Rainier, one of the epic events for me was discovering computers. I took all the courses I could up at the college that I could understand anyway. I think there was 4 or 5 of them. The rest of them, I figured I better not do it. I also took some other math classes and issues, so it's a very valuable asset. We need the education here. It's a good college. I think it needs to help us understand how we could get more trade schools. We have the nursing college up there, which is kind of a trade school. Thank you.
All right, and next question.
Hi, I'm Patrick Noonan, live in Port Angeles. Earthquake is suddenly on all of our minds after some recent publications. We have the potential to become an island if we were to lose 101 and the Hood Canal Bridge. So my question to both of you is, do we have the ability to unload a container ship and feed us? Or if not, you have a plan to see that we do?
Okay, and we will start with Mr. Breitenbach.
The county and the different sheriff departments all went through a big comprehensive plan here recently, and they keep that updated. The port would have the ability to bring in ships with water or foodstuffs. I believe, and I can't sure of the year that the Hoods Canal Bridge went down and the bridge across the Bogachiel went down, was great for us fishermen because we didn't have any competition here. But it also created a little bit of a problem, and everybody had to take a ferry from Port Townsend to Seattle if they wanted to go to Seattle. Or they had that Mickey Mouse barge that took you across Hoods Canal, which was sometimes an exciting little adventure. So I think reasonably we're well situated for emergencies here, and people are keeping themselves trained for it also.
Can we unload a container ship?
You'll have to
Okay.
get back up if you want to press that. Ms. Bouvet, 1 minute.
The biggest earthquake I've been in is an 8.4, where I had to evacuate 365 people from a building. So I'm not unfamiliar with earthquakes, what they can do, and their repercussions. And it is the repercussions that we have to consider. There will be more than one island out here. There will be an island any place there's a bridge down or there's a large culvert out. There will be islands all over the place. Can we unload a container ship here? It depends. It depends on how high the surge is. If the surge comes up at all, because look at our downtown area down there, it's very low. If there are logs out there, if there are cars parked down there, if there's anything down there, that surge comes up, it takes it all back out with this. Can you get a ship in? It's going to be a while. So out in the Joyce area, at least we're looking at amphibious craft to bring things into, say, the freshwater bay area. But what is going to be really important is that airport. That airport is what's going to save us.
30-second rebuttal, Mr. Breitenbach.
For a few years, and I didn't go up there this year, I worked at a lodge up in Alaska, and 2 lodges up there depend on a barge and a tug to come up the shallow draft river for all their supplies. This area here, a container ship would be pretty unreasonable to try to load here, but barges, you could have loaned those all day and you could bring a lot of material in with multiple barges. So I think that would work fine.
And Ms. Bouvet, rebuttal.
Well, he hasn't seen what a surge can do to a harbor then. But again, what's going to save us is air support. And we don't even know if the Coast Guard will be able to get their 2 ready helicopters off the ground. They always have a 3rd one standing by. If they're not quick, they may not be able to get them off the ground, which will create even more problems. So first we have to look at medical evacuation, of course, and again, we're looking at the airport for that, not over water.
Very good. Next question.
I'm Peter Heisel from Sequim. I'm curious about the arrearage issue. I understand that it can return lots of tax revenue to the county, tax revenue that hasn't been coming to the county because the state has not been logging what they can. But I would like to know what the port can do to influence that situation to get more tax money for schools coming into the county.
We'll start with Ms. Bouvet.
The port needs to have a very loud voice, and that for more than one reason. Not only does timber provide income for the port, but it creates job opportunities. So it's imperative upon the port commissioners to have a very strong voice at the regional level, at the state level, and at the national level. And I, on my own, I've been down to Olympia, and I have talked to the Board of Natural Resources and stuck my finger in their face and told them to do their job. They cost us about $80 million with 200 million feet of timber in arrearage. That money is not now being seen by our junior taxing districts, to include our school districts who are desperately looking for money to build schools. Even out in Forks, they're having a levy out there because they don't have enough money to buy, I think it's an ambulance that they're getting. And if they had that arrearage money, they would be able to do it. So yes, I've also worked as a charter review commissioner member to take that effort forward too.
And Mr. Breitenbach, 1 minute.
Having been in business for 30 years and watching the DNR, they have several problems and they're very occurring. One is wildlife, which mostly they've solved, owls and murrelets, but those are excuses still. And the other excuse for the arrearage with them is labor problems, not having enough people to lay out the sales and offer them up. So I think the issue is going to be one of working with the legislatures, and that's the port's main goal, I think. I think the port needs to help the governor of the state actually develop and have a forest policy, which he doesn't have, I believe. I haven't been able to find one. We need to work with the several people that we can in the local area to see if there's some new ideas they can come up with to help with the timber sale layout and move that forward. Most of the jobs that have been lost in Forks would be replaced by harvest jobs if in fact the DNR was harvesting the appropriate amounts if they agreed to.
30-second rebuttal.
We as a community, and that includes the port commissioners, need to keep pressure on DNR for them to do their job. Every year they have a decadal harvest cycle that they do. It's a 10-year cycle, and they're supposed to harvest so much every year. But they start out with a deficit just in that. They have no intention at the beginning of the harvest year to take that year's entire harvest. They start out at about 80%. We need to keep pressure on them and get them to do their job. And if the Forest Council, cut off again.
Oh, well, maybe we'll get back to that. Mr. Breitenbach.
I believe usually I go to about every other junior taxing district meeting in Forks with the DNR. And as I said, it's the same thing. We're not enough people. They don't give us enough money. The management probably started in '92, where when Belcher took over the DNR as the commissioner, created top-down management. The local managers here simply do not have the power or the, I can't think of the word. They have to depend on Olympia.
Okay, we'll go on to the next question.
Kenneth Riando, Port Angeles. So my question is, you say that air service is close to being in service again here. And what I've read is it will have to be subsidized. What level of subsidy are you willing to pay in order to encourage an airline to locate here?
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Breitenbach.
I believe that every airport in the country, whether it's big or small, is generally subsidized by the local governments. I don't think that you can make that pay-as-you-go. If, in fact, you had horrific charters and air cargo in and out of there, it's possible, but that's not going to happen. I think it's going to continue much as it has. And hopefully we get 3-4 flights a day when it's applicable for the airline to do so.
And Ms. Bovee, 1 minute.
There's a reason that the FAA has decided that property contiguous to airports needs to be included as part of airport income. So that means all the industrial area that is on property that is attached to airport property, that the revenue from those buildings is to help support the airline service. That's the only way an airline can be in the black. And so that's one of the reasons it's important to build up our industrial businesses out there and all of the other lines of business that we have, so that we can help put whatever money we need to put into that business so that we have a reliable, sustainable airline service. That is what we will have to do, and I am ready to do it. It will have to be subsidized.
30-second rebuttal, Mr. Breitenbach.
Just again, I've flown out of the harbor here in float planes. I don't really like that. I've been in Alaska all over the place with float planes, and I definitely don't like that much. It's always quite exciting when the wind comes up in the water. I've chartered a couple times out of PA with Wright Brothers with several other people. That's available right now, but we definitely need an air service here. And it's a lot to do with safety for me and also medical issues with people that need to leave the area. Thanks.
30 seconds.
It is interesting. I was talking to Jeff Well on Friday. He's the owner of Wright Brothers, and he really expected his charter business to just go right up into the air when the airlines left, and it in fact did the opposite. His business has gone down, and it continues to go down. People just aren't chartering planes, but they will fly a fairly small commercial plane to get out of here. And then his business, he's got multiple businesses there.
Okay, next question. Looks like we'll have time for probably 2 more, maybe 3.
Okay, this is my second part of my first question. So the $1 million that the county sent to the port was specifically, and they said they had no strings attached, they don't know what the port's going to do with it. But their hope is that it will be used to complete that building that the composites are going to be in. So my question is, if you use that $1 million to the port to expand that building and make it appropriate, and then you have a composite come in and lease the building, would you be in favor of the port returning part of that lease money back to the county to repay the $1 million so that money could then be used for another enterprise?
We'll start with Ms. Bouvet.
Interesting question. So first of all, the port asked for that $1 million because the reserves for the port, although there's quite a bit in the bank right now, is very strapped. We've got a stormwater project that is going on that will cost in the neighborhood of $8 million. K-Ply is going to cost $4 million before we even begin to look at an infrastructure on that site so that we can get a business in there. So that money was provided to help build up that infrastructure in that building, whether it ends up being composite or not. The port has worked with the city to get the original shell of the building in there now. And the port will continue to support the composite business being in that building by putting the necessary furniture in there and providing operating funds. It will be quite a while before the business itself beyond that business generates income. And that building itself is going to be for development and technology and classes and won't really generate a lot of revenue on its own.
And Mr. Breitenbach, 1 minute.
You asked some really tough questions. My understanding is, will the port pay the money back, or will they pay some of it back? I think when you look at the projected jobs that this will create, not even the jobs that will feed those jobs also from the local area, I think you get your payback there. I don't see that the port would be, it'd be more like a loan if they didn't take a loan, was a grant. So I think we'll see payback, but it's going to take a while. It's not going to be a couple of years or something. It'll be 15, 20 years when that gets paid back.
Rebuttal.
That money was to provide economic development. That's what the money's going to be used for, and I don't see a need to pay it back. I don't see the port in the foreseeable future having money that it can throw back to the county because it doesn't need it anymore. There will be other projects that the port will need money for.
And Mr. Breitenbach.
The use of the port properties, if they were ever to be fully used, would create a situation where our property taxes could be held in advance from their levy each year. And I think that's the important thing, is if we have money that's earmarked for some development and the numbers work out and it looks like it's going to be a good deal for the county, for all the citizens here, I think that's what we should do.
We have time certainly for one more question, and I think we may be able to get a second one in as well.
Hi, Jim Preston, Port Angeles again. I believe that last question is based on an incorrect premise. The money that was to be received was going to come from the county, but it was economic development funds. Those come from the state. I believe, wasn't it an accounting, function, where the county had some extra money that would go now, but then they would be reimbursed by the state. And the state, I believe, for economic development funds, gets that from the federal government. Those are grants. Those are economic development grants are not normally repaid, are they? Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Breidenbach.
Generally, they're not repaid, no. And the question you've got is, I don't have an answer for you, to be truthful. But I know that the funds don't need to be repaired.
And Ms. Bovee?
I do know that opportunity funds are provided to this county in an amount of $1.75 million a year. And I know that it took a lot of struggling with the county commissioners to offer that money up. But the Carlsberg project, which was kind of what the money had been set aside for, is at least two years away from construction. So the county is getting $1.75 million a year, and so the county decided it might be a real boost to the county if they put, $3 million out there for opportunity funds to help grow or finish some projects out there that would help the economy. Knowing that by the time the Carlsberg project was ready for the money, we would have received two more $1.75 million that comes from state tax.
So they're not
Yeah,
taxpayer.
wait,
taxpayer.
we don't, you can possibly ask that later, but let's hold on. Rebuttal, Mr. Breidenbach?
No, that's fine.
Okay. So before we get to the next question, I'm going to check in with the audience. Theoretically, we've built in 10 minutes for a break before we go into the next panel. And in my mind, if anybody in here at all wants a break, we'll do a break. And so I want to check in on that first. I know it might be embarrassing, but anyway, would anybody in here like to take a break before we get to the next panel? Okay, so we have a few people. Would 5 minutes be adequate? Okay, well, in that case, we can take at least one more question and possibly a second one.
Cindy Kelly from Port Angeles. Is it your understanding that if we were to meet the sustainable harvest levels with the DNR, if they were able to cut enough timber, that school districts would not need to run bonds?
And we'll start on that with Ms. Bovee.
I know that money is earmarked for school construction. Whether or not the school districts would have to have any more bonds, again, that's a question that I would ask the school board candidates. But I do know with the McCleary decision, there are not going to be enough rooms around. I don't know that there's going to be enough money even from timber arrearage to provide those rooms. It is quite a quandary.
And Mr. Breidenbach.
The only thing the arrearage will do is soften the blow on our taxes. The construction fund has never been fully funded by timber, and it will not be from this if they do catch up to their actual lack of cut for the last 20 years that they've been involved in out here.
And rebuttal?
If the arrearage were caught up, it certainly would help all the taxing districts, including the schools, and we would be in a lot better position than we are now. Thank you.
And Mr. Breidenbach.
Generally, the biggest beneficiaries of the taxing district are the schools, the hospital, and the library. Those are the big three in my mind when I go to the meetings, and they're struggling right now, as we all know. So this is really important for us. We don't have a large tax base. We only occupy less than, I think, 2% of the land on the peninsula. We have very few people here. So it's very difficult to make things work here. And the timber harvesting would certainly help us quite a bit.
We could do one more question if anybody wants to get up for one more. Anybody who felt that your question wasn't answered well enough? Well, you two did an awesome job, I have to say. You beat them down. At any rate, we now go into closing statements, and these will be 1 minute. We'll reverse the order from the opening statements and begin with Mr. Breitenbach.
As I said again, I moved here in '76. This place was booming. You could stand out in the street with a lunch pail and get a job. That's what I did. We don't see that now. Jobs are a lot more difficult to find here, and we need to see a focus on not only the harvesting of timber, but also the manufacturing jobs and also the tourism industry here. And the port has a place in all three of those: the cruise ships, the land-based timber harvesting, and manufacturing. So I think that's very important to keep that in mind, and that's one of my goals, is to keep that at the forefront and work on all three of those areas to continue to try to create some jobs and some energy here, and see if we can't bring some companies from the outside in here to invest in our area. So I would like you to think about my experience, and think about my experience again, and thinking about my experience a third time. And when you go to vote, read the pamphlet and be an informed voter, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Beauvais?
We need to improve leadership, communication, and marketing at our port, and I am the candidate best qualified to work with the other commissioners to move us toward those ends. I held a strong first place after the primary. With 4 of us running, I won 33% of the vote and over half of the precincts. I'm the only candidate who has regularly attended port meetings, workshops, and port-related meetings, and I am prepared to step right in and get to work. I am the only candidate to have toured the port facilities with the executive director and staff, and I understand all the lines of business. I'm the only candidate to have worked for a marina, overseeing the maintenance department, marketing cruisers, and taking care of the company books. I'm the only candidate with a background in community relations, personnel, finance, and administration. I am asking for your support and your vote so together we can move our port and our county into a new prosperous era. Please vote Connie for Port Commissioner District 3. Thank you.
And thanks to both of you on behalf of the League of Women Voters for appearing here today. I hope both of you can remain for the rest of the forum and possibly talk to people during the break or after the forum is over. And I would like to give you all, have us all give you both a big